first, the anti-NEET protests in New Delhi took a significant turn late last night when activist Sonam Wangchuk finally decided to end his hunger strike. The activist took the decision after receiving assurances from Union Minister J.P. Nadda that the centre would not initiate legal proceedings against students protesting at Jantar Mantar. A contingent led by Union Ministers Nadda as well as Jitendra Singh met Wangchuk in hospital as the activist took his first bite of food after well over 25 days. And in fact, in an uncharacteristic late-night address to the nation, recorded as a selfie video on a smartphone, Prime Minister Modi reassured students that the centre would explore the legislative approach to clamping down on paper leaks by enacting tougher laws. In fact, this video was uploaded by the Prime Minister just hours after he promised to set up fast-track courts to prosecute individuals accused in leaking the NEET examination paper. In fact, source-based information coming ET Now's way have also suggested that the cabinet, in fact, has cleared amendments that will be made to the Public Examinations Act of 2024, in addition to setting up these courts with enhanced powers to prosecute those accused of paper leakages. But meanwhile, the Cockroach Janata Party welcomed the end of Wangchuk's fast, but reaffirmed that protests would continue until Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan tenders his resignation. In fact, after that meeting with that two-member contingent from the Union government, the CJP said another meeting slated for tomorrow could well take place. So earlier today, multiple South Indian cities continued seeing protests and protesters take to the streets. In Chennai, the May 17th movement, led by activist and chief organizer Thirumurugan Gandhi, took out protests near the Shastri Bhavan, demanding an end to the NEET examination. Hyderabad saw BRS working president K.T. Ramarao participating in a protest too, while Thiruvananthapuram saw school teachers associations hold demonstrations in solidarity with Jantar Mantar's student uprising. Let's quickly take a look at some of the action from the ground.
We have been witnessing protests across the country in solidarity with the students who are protesting in Delhi against the NEET paper leak and for the demand of the resignation of Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. As a part of such solidarity protests, we are witnessing the protest here in Chennai by May 17 movement, which is a social and a political movement in Tamil Nadu. And they are also, protesting, demanding that all the demands put forth by the students when it comes to this NEET paper leak, they has to be met immediately, and the Union BJP government has to answer them and to give them the solution that they are asking. And they're also trying to talk about Tamil Nadu's perspective in this matter, as Tamil Nadu has been demanding for the exemption from NEET or a complete ban on NEET for the past decade or so, and that they will continue to put forth the demands that Tamil Nadu will not be okay with NEET any further. And that will also be an additional demand that they are putting forward in this protest. Therefore, many such protests are happening in Tamil Nadu, and May 17 has also joined the bandwagon of protest in solidarity with the student protests in Delhi.
Well, Varshini there bringing us that report on student movements across the country in solidarity with the protests at Jantar Mantar. But moving on to a South Central exclusive next. For decades, India has been known as the pharmacy of the world. The country is, after all, the third largest producer of pharmaceuticals by volume, supplying around 20% of the world's generic medicines and nearly 60% of the global vaccine demand. But a new report by BCG and HealthCois argues that the country's life sciences story is entering a new phase. The report suggests that India is gradually shifting from manufacturing at scale to building original science with growing momentum in AI-led drug discovery, precision medicine, biologics, and cell and gene therapies. At the same time, it points out that the country's R&D spend still trails global peers by a significant margin, and that access to patient capital, clinical trials, and research translation remain key bottlenecks. Interestingly, many of the report's strongest examples come from South India. Hyderabad's Genome Valley is showcased as India's largest integrated life sciences cluster, while Bengaluru's C-Camp is highlighted as a leading deep tech biotech incubator that's helped nurture more than 100 startups. The report also argues that if India is to produce the next generation of breakthrough drugs and therapies, much of that journey could well begin right here in the South. So how close are we to becoming a global innovation powerhouse? And what still needs to change? Joining us now to discuss the findings is Ajay Mahipal, co-founder and general partner at HealthCois, which worked on that report in partnership with BCG. Ajay, Firstly, thank you so much for joining us right here in South Central. Let's jump straight into it. Your report points out that the country is finally moving from being the world pharmacy to become a solid pharma innovation hub. Now, are we actually seeing that shift take place, or does India's strength still lie in many ways in its manufacturing prowess?
Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for having me at TT now. I think India's pharma and life sciences sector is at an important inflection point. Over the past decade, we've seen 10 novel drug assets which have originated from India, spanning first-in-class NCEs, indigenous CAR-T therapies, and AI-discovered molecules. We've also seen private equity and venture capital investment, which has grown 2.1x over the last 5 years. And biotech startups have increased 1.6x to almost 2,400 from 1,500 earlier. And the patent filings have also risen more than 4x, and innovation pipeline has expanded 1.5 times. So this shift is qualitative and not just quantitative in our view. And Indian companies are moving beyond generics and biosimilars to originate, license, and compete globally.
I'm asking this question largely because, even as we speak, Ajay, India has thousands of pharma companies, but you see very little novel drugs actually being conceptualized and originating out of the country. So what's the missing link, really?
No, so of course, India has been known as generic capital of the world, and we now see the clear evidence that the shift is underway. We've produced the 10 novel drug assets. We're working on CAR-T therapies, AI-discovered molecules. India's pharma R&D spend was a fraction of what US and Europe was spending. We have 15% of the global disease burden, while we only do 4% of the global clinical trials. And in terms of our R&D spends, it has been $2 to $3 billion versus $60 to $70 billion in US and close above $50 billion in Europe. So we've seen that that change is now happening with the government initiative, with $5 billion of funding being put through different government programs. We see the BioShakti program, which has now taken shape. And of course, we have Genome Valley and CCamp, who are helping both incubate and then scale up through the infrastructure support. So I think now we are seeing the structure enablers getting in place, and the move from generics to biosimilars to actually origination is now going to happen in a significantly larger way. And that's why the report was very timely in terms of putting it out in terms of how these different structure enablers coming together can essentially transform the next decade for Indian life sciences.
Let's get down to the specifics when it comes to South India, Ajay. The fact is that your report takes the Genome Valley example, for instance, in Hyderabad, and CCamp in Bengaluru as well, you just spoke about it, as dedicated case studies. Have both cities evolved complementary strengths in the life sciences space, or are they essentially competing and possibly cannibalizing each other when it comes to competing for the same set of investments?
So I would say they're complementary hubs with different centers of gravity rather than direct substitutes. Genome Valley in Hyderabad, as we all know, is a large integrated industrial cluster with GMP manufacturing, pilot scale facilities, global big pharma innovation centers. And it is already manufacturing roughly 1/3 of world's vaccine doses. On the other hand, when we look at CCamp, it's a deep tech incubator focused on very early stage science, and it has shared high-end instrumentation, incubated startups, and it has brought lab to proof of concept translation. So I think it feeds innovation that can later scale in clusters like Genome Valley. So it's not competing in our view, and it's more complementary.
Right. And even as Telangana and Karnataka feature prominently in that report itself, the fact is that Tamil Nadu also has a strong pharma manufacturing base and a medical devices ecosystem. And I'm talking about centers like Taisal, for instance, when I make these observations. What do you think this market in Tamil Nadu needs to do, or do differently rather, to actually catch up with its peers in Karnataka as well as Telangana?
Yeah, no, good question. So Tamil Nadu already has real strengths, we believe, a sizable pharma manufacturing base. They have a strong medical devices ecosystem and assets like Taisal Biopark. So the foundation is there. To truly compete with Telangana and Karnataka on innovation, I think it'll need to move beyond manufacturing into deeper R&D and startup formation. This would mean that more translational research programs, greater density of biotech and health tech startups, and of course, stronger academia and industry tech transfer mechanisms. So building a more visible deep tech funding and incubation stack in Chennai or Coimbatore, similar to what Genome Valley and CCamp have done, we think could go a long way in attracting both domestic and global innovation capital into the state.
Right. Ajay, I want to throw the focus back on Hyderabad for just a bit. The fact is that the city has its first mover advantage going for it, given the legacy that it currently holds in the Genome Valley for years now. Do you expect it to continue staying ahead of the curve at that pole position while fighting off competition from Tamil Nadu as well as Karnataka? Is that city, that market, India's undisputed life sciences hub in a way?
Yes, I think so. I think it goes hand in hand, and of course, cities which propel forward and have a bigger infrastructure already in place will always stay ahead of the curve. And they definitely have a genuine first mover advantage. They have an integrated life science cluster, plug and play labs. They have pilot and GMP manufacturing. So I think that will continue to fuel their growth. But at the same time, I think Bangalore is also becoming deep tech and data rich innovation hub. Uh, Hyderabad can, of course, stay ahead, but to keep investing in innovation, but they will also have to keep investing in innovation, infrastructure, talent, and health data assets. So I think the cities which are ahead will need to continue investing and will need to continue to keep their focus on the innovation curve and building all structural enablers. And of course, the cities which are catching up will need to do it at a much faster pace.
Right. Ajay, I want to pick up on your report, which actually says that the cold hard fact is that India continues to struggle when it comes to patient capital, clinical trials, and even commercializing research. Now, which of these three challenges are perhaps the biggest hurdle today in the life sciences ecosystem actually moving ahead, especially in cities like Hyderabad or Bengaluru that has all the potential going for them in terms of making this and taking it to the next level? Which of these challenges could well be the biggest roadblock ahead?
See, in our view, while all of these three challenges matter and they reinforce one another, but if we have to pick one today, we would choose patient specialist capital for deep science. There are only 10 to 15% VCs in India who have deep pharma or biotech experience versus, let's say, 60% in the US, which means genuinely novel, high-risk science often struggles to get the right kind of funding and support. And we think government has also come up in a big way, both from a grant and equity funding through their different programs. And when patient capital is available, we think it becomes much more easier to invest into clinical trial infrastructure and to build more bench to bedside pathways and to take academic IP through the long, uncertain journey to commercialization. So I think that would be our, core gap, which we can, if we can solve through different pools of capital from private equity, venture capital funds to family office capital to government support. I think if it all comes together, we will have a much bigger success in the space.
Right. And just to give some context to our viewers, Ajay, the fact is, and I know this, the fact that you've actually spoken to multiple founders, investors, and researchers across the ecosystem while going about preparing this ecosystem. So, as far as health choice is concerned, what is the one insight or concern that kept coming up in South India while you went about doing this groundwork itself? What are investors and founders telling you in terms of the concerns that they have as far as the life sciences ecosystem in the region is concerned?
Yeah, so I think India has certain structural advantages in terms of cost, data, and talent. I think one clear remark from all the some of the startup founders and the ecosystem players is basically they need all of this to come together to support their growth. This requires much more patient capital in terms of if you're going in for any biopharma research or drug development, etc. So you would essentially need support from all the ecosystem partners, including government and private capital, to make these into a significant success story. So we've always had the best talent. We've exported the best talent to the world. Now we just need it in India to all of it to come together for us to create a significantly bigger success story. And while we've had 10 novel drug assets come out in India so far, we think in next 20 years, we could see 50 more novel drug assets. So the quantum leap could essentially happen from here for the Indian biopharma space.
Talk about talent at a time when the fact is, and this is something we talk about every time we talk about the pharma space, the fact is India has multiple pharma companies and yet only a handful of globally significant novel drugs have actually originated from here. Is that set to change? And if yes, to what degree?
Yes, so that's what I was highlighting, that we think that this could undergo a massive change from here on. Of course, we've been focused on generics and biosimilars, and we've been fairly successful at that. We carry 15% of the global disease burden and only 4% clinical trials. And of course, it earlier used to require significant cost and capex for you to essentially go through a drug development, which could essentially cost almost $1 to $2 billion and almost take 10 years in terms of development. And of course, our Indian pharma, which has been built on frugal capital and innovation through iteration. So I think now, as there is significant resources both at the Indian pharmaceutical companies, also from fund-of-fund programs, and also from private equity and venture capital alongside government funding, which is coming through. We now think we have the right elements in place from a funding perspective and then from an infrastructure perspective to scale up some of these assets, and this will essentially now fuel the growth, which will be unprecedented. We still have to see all this success to play out over next decade and more. But we at least feel that the green shoots are in place, which are now clearly visible, and we just need to sort of nurture them well to essentially get that massive outcome for the country.
Right. So let's get you to look into your crystal ball and make that projection then. In, let's say, 10 years from now, what will South India's life sciences sector look like in terms of market size, startup patterns, global investments, if at all? Let's stay with investments, for instance. How much do you think the sector will attract in terms of investments, given all the promise that it holds?
So we've seen it double over the last 5 years to about $730 million in FY26. We see this funding to essentially go up significantly over next 5 years. We think this could easily be 3x from here in next 5 years, and overall about 8x from here in next 10 years. So I think our view is that with the structural enablers in place, this will now see significant momentum from how capital chases some of these assets, early stage assets. And of course, you're already seeing participation by pharmaceutical companies, family offices, private equity venture capital funds, and of course, government also playing its part through RDIF, Bioshakti Mission, and other schemes.
Lots to look forward to then, even as it's a future to actually look forward to and build on, given the South's legacy that's already been created in the life sciences space, validated, of course, by that report by both HealthCois and BCG. So on that note, Ajay, thanks for joining us on South Central and breaking down some of these insights. Great speaking to you on the show.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
From life sciences to AI next, HCLTech has announced its first AI data center in partnership with Bengaluru-based AI startup Sarvam, with a proposed investment of 14,257 crore rupees at the upcoming Odisha Sovereign AI Park. The project will offer a full-stack multilingual sovereign AI service for both government as well as enterprise customers, and is expected to create around 5,000 jobs. Sarvam AI, remember, is one of India's leading homegrown AI companies. My colleague Darshita has more on this partnership.
HCLTech has announced a major AI infrastructure project in India. The company has signed an MOU with Sarvam AI and the Odisha government to set up the first AI data center at the upcoming Odisha Sovereign AI Park at Bhubaneswar. Now, the project will see an investment of about 14,257 crore rupee with the support from the Odisha government. The data center will provide the GPU infrastructure needed to train and run AI models, combining HCLTech's AI capabilities with Sarvam AI's foundation model. Why does this matter? So it's a big step towards India's sovereign AI ambitions, reducing the dependence on global cloud providers. It also marks HCLTech's shift from being just an AI service company to becoming an AI infrastructure player. So overall, this is a strategic move that strengthens both HCLTech's AI ambitions and the India's AI ecosystem.
Well, moving on, the centuries-long Kaveri water dispute could be headed for a fresh round of political engagement. Karnataka Chief Minister D.K. Shivkumar has said that he is ready to hold talks with his Tamil Nadu counterpart, Chief Minister Vijay, on the contentious Mekedatu project, emphasizing that both states should set politics aside and work together. Now, the remarks come even as Tamil Nadu has maintained its opposition to Mekidatu, arguing that it would affect its own share of Kaveri water. However, in what could be a signal of thawing ties between both states, reports indicate that Chief Minister Vijay is now expected to visit Karnataka on the 3rd of August to discuss the issue and other interstate matters. The development has now raised hopes that direct political dialogue could help ease one of South India's most contentious water disputes. And in what can only be described as an extraordinary observation from the Telangana High Court in a land dispute involving the Hyderabad Disaster Response and Asset Protection Agency, or HYDRA, the court initially directed the deployment of 10 army personnel to secure a 40-acre land parcel in Secunderabad. The observation came as the court was hearing a contempt petition filed by Shanta Sriram Constructions over a disputed land bank. The court said it was calling for the army as it had lost faith in the state administration over alleged repeated violations of its orders. Following assurances from Telangana's Advocate General, however, the court then decided to keep its army deployment order in abeyance for the time being, at least as the case is being heard. Now, while the case has been adjourned, the court's sharp remarks and unprecedented direction have drawn scrutiny to Hydra's handling of land disputes across the state of Telangana. And staying with Telangana, the state could emerge as one of the biggest beneficiaries of India's push towards 20% ethanol blending, or E20. As demand for grain-based ethanol gathers pace across the state, Telangana has already said that it has surplus maize production and is seeing fresh investments in ethanol manufacturing, which in turn could diversify income opportunities for farmers across the state. Industry estimates suggest that ethanol production capacity in Telangana could expand significantly over the next few years, creating a stronger market for maize and other feedstock while attracting investments into processing and biofuel infrastructure. Meanwhile, BRS Working President K.T. Ramarao has escalated his confrontation with the Congress government in Telangana, issuing a legal notice to Chief Minister Revanth Reddy and State Cabinet Ministers Ponguletti Srinivas Reddy and Komati Reddy Venkat Reddy, among others. Now, KTR is seeking 100 crore rupees in damages over what he calls false, defamatory and malicious allegations made by the now Congress ministers in the government in Telangana, which link him to the city's Formula E race organized by the previous government, which KTR was a part of. The lawsuit demands for an unconditional apology from Revanth Reddy and withdrawal of statements within 15 days, with the threat of civil and criminal legal action should these conditions not be met. Meanwhile, on to the world of cinema next. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Vijay's latest film, Jananayagan, also his last film, is continuing its dream run at the box office. The release has touched the 50 crore rupee mark today, riding on the back of packed theatres across Tamil Nadu and sustained momentum from record-breaking advance bookings. Analysts expect the film to post even stronger numbers over the weekend as larger audiences are expected to join the initial rush of fans. The film, remember, has already cashed in worldwide collections totaling to around 78 crore rupees on day one itself. Vijay, remember, is India's second ever chief minister to have a film release starring himself while also holding office, and the first chief minister to achieve that feat in nearly 5 decades. And on that note, we've come to the end of this bulletin today. Thank you so much for watching. South Central will be back soon with more news and updates from South India. But for the moment, it's goodbye.